giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Hey. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of Selling Travel Podcast. I just love the irony some weeks when a podcast topic just comes. So this one actually is courtesy of Sydney posting inside of our free Facebook group. If you're not already in there, I'm going to link it up in the show notes. Go over and join us because you never know when your question just might get picked and put on the show so that we can go a little bit deeper. But her question was specific to politics. And so I do not want this to be a politics-based episode, but rather an uncertainty. And so that's kind of where the irony comes in, because nothing shook the travel industry more than COVID. As you can probably tell, I'm not feeling 100%. Yes, because I'm recovering from COVID. What are the freaking odds? Anyways, so Sydney's question, let me just pull that up, was, have any of you been coming up against, I want to wait till the election's over to see what happens before I travel? She was kind of saying, I don't get the connection. Others were saying, no, I haven't had that. And others are saying, yeah, I'm starting to get that. Here's the thing. It's not specifically the election. It's the uncertainty that's going to come with an election. And again, I do not want to make this political. I do not want to make it this one versus that one. But anytime that there is a major election, particularly in the US, we're going to see shifts in the stock market. Every time one of the candidates does a major shift or a major policy announcement or a major anything, and in particular, getting elected, it has the potential to shift the markets. Now, a lot of times people will say, but I don't get how that affects it. Well, if the markets are affected and you're in the luxury travel, some of that money that's sitting there for them, or those dividends and all of the things that they otherwise use as their quote unquote play money, could suddenly vanish overnight, at least on paper. It takes away some of the certainty that they have. That happened to me a number of years ago in the province that I live in. I had actually done a huge consumer event. And out of that consumer event, we booked so many consultations. It was phenomenal. I had people wanting to book river cruises. I had people wanting to book tours. I had people wanting to book all sorts of things. And then here in Canada, we don't necessarily have set dates as to when our politicians are going to call for an election. And it was that following Monday, Monday or Tuesday. I've somewhat blocked out the time. They call it dropping the writ. And so an election was called, and instantly everything went into uncertainty. So every single one of my consultations canceled because they wanted to wait and see what was going to happen. You know how I said I blocked it out? That was why. Here's the scoop. So many of them were government workers. They didn't know what that was going to look like. They were in healthcare. They were in different segments that they didn't know how the election was going to affect them on the other side. Now, the upside here in Canada, once they drop the writ, I think it's 28 days. Yeah, so it must have been a Tuesday. It's 28 days from the day they drop the writ until the election. Thank heavens that is not years upon years. But that it was a short term. We did recover some of it afterwards, but that was the year that our political party that had been running the province for decades switched over to a very different ideology, and a different party came into play. So there was a massive amount of uncertainty that it took a while for consumer confidence to come back again. The same is true anytime we have a world crisis, anytime we have a pandemic, Anytime we have something that's going to shake the confidence, it's going to cause uncertainty. So here's the thing. It might look like a pandemic. It might look like, God forbid, another 9/11. It might look like an invasion. Like it could look like almost anything. I sold travel for enough years. I went through Zika, H1N1, all of the different sorts of things. Anytime the news has a slow news cycle, you're going to hear about, oh my heavens, don't go to Mexico, don't do this. Don't. It, I could almost set my stopwatch to what the questions were going to be based on what was in the news cycle that morning. And it gets really, really overwhelming. And that's with somebody on the inside, it's overwhelming. Now, if we add in the clickbait, unfortunately, news stations now get rewarded through people clicking on things for making things as salacious and as headline and clickbaity as possible. And we've also turned into a society that just reads the headlines and moves on, and they don't read everything else. I think they're probably happier some ways in that respect. I do read a lot of articles, and I read them from all sides because, especially when you're in the travel industry, you need to comprehend what's going on all sides, all around the world, or at least where your clients are going to be traveling, so that you have that deep understanding of what that political climate is, what that world climate is, what the climate is, if you will. And so you need to understand when you're talking with your clients. And again, this is why forms don't work. You have to have the rapport and the relationship in order to establish some context and in order to be able to establish the right, if you will, to be able to ask questions. Because if you haven't built a rapport, if you haven't built up that time to get to know your clients and for your clients to get to know you and genuinely view you as a trusted authority, then you don't have the right to be able to ask them the questions that need to be asked. So in this particular scenario, we are going to talk about the upcoming American election. And so we need to know from the client, I hear you, I see you, but I am curious, what will it take for you to feel more confident in order to be able to make that decision? Because for some of them, it might be that they just want to see the other side. Okay, so will it matter which one wins? No. Okay. Here's the thing. Sometimes I'm just going to wait for the election can just be an excuse. It can just be a generic blanketed objection, but it just happens to have a timeline on it. So in which case you can adjust that question a bit from there. You can say to them, okay, so if the outcome isn't going to affect, is there anything other than that that's standing in between booking and not? And really put it back to them. Because again, if we look at it like any other objection, it might simply just be a blanketed response. But they might also say, I've got to see how this fund does. I've got to see how my accounts handle the market surge or the market drop or the market whatever. Okay. Well, what if we were able to book you a fully refundable rate? The only thing that would be my fee, but that's okay because I'll be here to help you all the way through the cancellation as well. Would that make it better for you? Oh, yeah, I think it would. Now, I am not a genie. I do not have a magic 8-ball, but I am going to say that there is probably a touch bit of a lack of consumer confidence going into an election. And as such, I can't make any predictions that you could take to the bank, but I have a hunch pricing might be a scooch bit softer prior to the election than it will be post-election. Again, I don't have any authority by which to say that, but it would be something I would be curious about, especially in the last couple weeks leading up, because it's going to be really, really hard to get attention during that time. And in fact, I would probably be very, very, very mindful of how you're spending your ad spend in these next 2 months leading up to the election, because the cost of ads, particularly in the US, is about to skyrocket because the political campaigns are going to be dumping buttloads of money into social media ads. So in which case, if it was me down there, I would probably be scaling back. I would still be pumping out content. I would make sure that my content was positive, that it was uplifting, and that it helped to create certainty. It's not that your people don't want to go. It's not that they can't afford to go. They just want to know that you've got their back, that you're going to make it okay, that you're going to look after them, that you're going to take care of them. That's what they're looking for. Anytime that there is a world crisis, a major national election, anything of that level, it is definitely a time of uncertainty. Here in Canada, I actually have taken where I now go and work the polls the day of the election, because I'm talking about the elector polls, not a different poll. But anyways, I work the elections because I know I'm going to pace all day waiting for the results to come in. And I know that I'm not going to get anything done in my office that day. So I would rather go and volunteer my time to work an election, and it consumes my whole day that way. That's what I personally do to make sure that I'm kind of occupied that day. There is a level of uncertainty every single time. And this becomes one of the ways that we can kind of take back a little bit of the control. Our clients are looking for somebody to kind of be that guide for them, to be that guiding force, and to give some empathy, but also to understand it just might be a blanketed, that's too much. Oh, I don't have time. Let's wait till after the election. I'm going to say that might be that might actually be a genuine objection, but it also might not be. And so in which case I would dig a little deeper, ask, okay, so what will be different after the election than before the election? Now, I want to underline this. This is not, I repeat, not your time to talk politics, to dive into it, to tell them who to vote for, anything like that. It is up to you if you choose to infuse your business into politics. I prefer not to. I think if you know me personally, you probably have a pretty strong idea of where I fall. But I will try really, really hard to not put my political thoughts and opinions onto others. And that, because that's an individual choice. I just want to tell you, get out and vote. But don't use that time to push your thoughts onto somebody else, because that is how you do alienate people. But they're also too, and I see this all the time, sometimes people also want to know, because they're following, are you going to push something in one side or another? Because at that point, they're going to break off because maybe they don't align. For me, I don't want to see an extremism on either side. I don't want to see the extremism of anywheres, because that's when we get into trouble. But selling in uncertainty is tough. Your best bet is to build some rapport so you can start to work on the relationship, so that you can find out what is making them feel uncertain, so that you, in turn, can create some certainty around that. Sometimes just getting them to talk it out. If you want to wait till after the election, what needs to happen after the election to make you feel more comfortable? Or what if something changes? How would that affect it? Okay, I think that is all my voice is going to handle for today. So I will be back here next week, same place, same time. Until then, happy selling.